All right, hey everyone, we're back with another Friday evening live SGU streaming event. Thanks for joining us. How's everybody doing tonight?
Good,
Aces.
It's Friday.
Great. It's not nighttime for me though. Middle of the day.
What animal is that in our show? What was that?
You want to start talking about that?
Yeah, sure.
Animal?
What animal? What are you talking
That
about?
animal?
Yeah, there
What
was
does
an
it look
animal.
like?
Well, now it's the chat, but it looked like a badger.
What are
Yeah,
you talking
it looks like a
about?
badger.
Karen, I don't know that Bob can see it.
It's not a
Can we see it?
badger. It's the crazy beast that was discovered in Madagascar. It's like 70 million years old.
Why is it crazy?
Because its anatomy is such that it cannot be placed confidently in the mammalian family tree. We don't know where it belongs.
It's the Piltdown of.
Wait, because of its what?
No, it's real.
Oh, right. Well,
You said it's a
but I'm saying it's jammed together a bunch of pieces.
It's like
that don't make
teeth are
sense.
weird.
Yeah, but Steve, that's
Yes,
anatomy. What about its what about its genome? What does the genome say?
Yeah.
I don't know that we
Wouldn't
have. It's too old, I think, for genome analysis. So it's
Okay.
dinosaur age.
All right,
whoa,
so
okay.
but
Yeah.
wait a minute. I mean, come on, it's got fur. What do you mean? You don't think it's a mammal?
Oh, it is a mammal.
All right. What are you saying then?
But it's a mammal from a time when the dinosaurs are still around. The
Okay.
non-avian dinosaurs.
Duck-billed platypus has a fur, but that's
Now,
a
Steve-
monotreme.
Did this thing exist before or after the Sleeslack?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sleaze
So what's
that.
funny is they say it's badger-like, then of course the artist paints it like a badger. So
Badger.
it looks like a
Yeah.
badger.
Oh, that's not an actual picture of it then.
That's no.
Yes, Jay. That's
But it is a remarkably well-preserved
It's
Ancient
specimen.
camera.
It's not only is it nearly complete, but it was preserved in such a way that it didn't get crushed, so the three-dimensional data is still there.
cool.
Yeah,
All right.
Cool.
What do they
70
call
million
it?
years? 70 million years old?
something like that.
What are they calling it, Steve?
Crazy beast.
Joey Jojo.
Really? They're just calling it
Really
crazy
calling it
beast.
crazy beast?
Well, that's the Latin name translates to crazy beast.
Seriously?
Yeah,
Insantium ferocium.
Paliosa.
it's like Alatherium hui.
No.
You're just making this up.
Ooh-wee.
It's a Adalatherium hui.
Oh
Hooey.
gosh.
HUI.
Really? Between
Hui.
hooey and would I'm gonna
I know,
all
right?
these words that sound like
That's
Hui.
like Joe
pulling my
Jojo
leg.
Shabadoo, you know?
Do you guys think Wood Eye was wrong?
Would have been Woody or Woody Eye.
Woody Eye.
Woody
could have
eye.
been,
That
yeah.
sound even
Woody eyes.
more made up.
I agree.
than would I. Woody Io Kae, MRFer.
So for the second week in a row,
Yep.
I ordered food delivered to my house.
And the dog ate it.
No. But they have no pasta in the stores. No pasta.
God, like,
Yes,
why?
that's right. Pasta.
People are not eating
lots of
more
pasta.
now. What is the deal? Is it just
Okay.
hoarding still?
That's why people are gaining weight at home. They bought all the pasta, and that's what they're eating.
You guys, I highly recommend, and this is
Yes.
not an ad because they've never given me a dime, but they've
Yeah.
taken lots of my dimes. A company called Pappardell's Pasta.
Yes. What do they do?
PAPP. They're in Colorado, and they make these insanely good, like some of the best dried, and also you can get frozen like stuffed tortellini and stuff, but
Yeah.
just the dried pastas that they carry, Steve, it's worth it. It costs a little more than obviously pasta from the store, but they'll deliver it to you, and it's amazing.
Wow. for not being
Pappardell's
an ad,
pasta
that
and they
was-
deliver.
I mean, it's like a company in Colorado, so they'll ship it to you.
They'll ship it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so good. They
All
have
right,
so
I'm
many.
on their
different
I'm on
flavors.
their website right now.
Yes.
Steve, you can make your own pasta. It's very easy. It's very easy. Do you have a like a
Slave.
mixer at home?
Evan,
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
at Evan. Ooh, Dustin has had that pasta and says it's super good.
See, I think I know what I'm getting you for your birthday now. Other than the other birthday, I have a birthday present for you right there, Steve. By the way, don't go into my office. Not that you would be in my office soon. But
Oh, sorry.
I found something for Steve when I saw it. I'm like, I'm buying that because I buy Steve the best presents, and he gets me the absolute shittiest presents.
Mhm.
He does.
He's like, I'm not. 5 minutes.
That is
Yes.
not true. Jay is making that up. I've gotten you some awesome presents.
At least
Name
you
one.
get Jay. At least you get presents.
Yeah.
Aw.
I bought Steve a freaking a
Mm.
screen-worthy Star Wars Rebel blaster. That's one of the last presents I got him.
Mhm.
What did you
Wow.
get me, Steve?
I got you those signed Star Wars pictures. Remember?
Yes, I have one right here.
Well, that
Steve
sounds
signed
like a
it
good
himself.
present. Signed by his daughter.
This is cool. This is probably the best thing Steve's gotten me.
So wait, what were you gonna say
we're-
was the terrible version of the blaster?
I'm not going to say it because Steve's wife may have picked it out. So
Whoa. Very tactical. Very tactical. Of you.
Yes.
That's great.
And Bob is awesome. Bob gets great
Yes.
presents.
Bob's awesome.
Bob's thoughtful. Bob can buy really fun little things that don't cost a lot, but that you are psyched that he got, which I love.
That's
And they're
good.
usually Halloween oriented. So look what I got my kids.
Are you wearing pajama pants, Jay?
No, these are my shorts.
Oh, okay.
See?
Nunchucks, huh?
Yeah, these are the kind that, they don't hurt.
Too
They're
much.
they're foamy. And I'm teaching them the moves. And my 7-year-old can he could do the over the shoulder thing. My 4-year-old literally tries to do it and throws them at you. Like she doesn't get it. She does, so she's just throwing them.
Actually,
Jay, I'll
Yeah.
work with her, Jay.
They were trying to keep the kids active, trying to give them things to do, and I want them to we really are pushing down iPad time, screen time, big time. Like even though it's like the only sanity time my wife and I get, but we take them. We've been on a few hikes. We've been doing a ton of work in the backyard, but we're getting to the point now where all the things that are fun are starting to not be fun anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to start getting creative.
Yeah.
Some new stuff. I went to Target this morning for the first time since lockdown. Have you guys ventured into anything like that since you've been?
Not like
Yeah,
Target.
I
What's
have.
that like?
Yeah,
What's
just
Target like?
supermarkets.
Been interesting. So there was a line outside that looked brutal, but it actually wasn't. It's only because
Right.
there's 6
It's
feet in
exact-
between
yeah.
each person.
Yeah.
And it's one person in, one person out. So that was
It's an
really
illusion.
nice.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
And then
Most
the
stores are
line
doing
to the
it.
register was one long register. So it went all the way to the back of the store, but
Mhm.
then they would split it to the different registers. So everything was actually working really well. I went
Wow.
because I was going to buy a grill that I put on hold because I really want to cook on my roof deck.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have any way to cook outside. So I went to pick up that grill and then get a few more groceries while I was at it. And it was weird because everybody's wearing masks because in California you have to, or I don't know if it's an LA mandate, but you can't go into a store without a mask on here.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
getting commoner, more.
Yeah, yeah. But for the most part, everybody was really, really nice and respectful of social distancing. And I felt like the people working were super sweet. And I noticed that most of the people shopping were very like generous and kind to the people working. So I was like appreciating that.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
It's good to
I
see.
would
Yeah.
love to kill a couple hours slowly walking through a store. It's like funny how you can miss it. Usually I just am when I go to a store, I'm like, I'm usually not that into it. One, because I just don't want to spend money because I want to, conserve as much money as I can usually.
Mm-hmm.
And two, I'm really not into crowds. I don't like being around strangers and crowds and stuff like never before in my life. I've never been like this that much before. But right now I'm like, my God, I would love to go kick around a freaking
A Target.
a
Yeah. There's
Target
something
would be
therapeutic about it.
Yeah.
Isn't
And
it-
when there's so few people, there's like only one other person on the aisle. So it's easy
Yeah.
to kind of not be in crowds.
Yeah.
And I kind of did what you just said, Jay. I almost went down every aisle because I'm like, I'm here. I don't want to come back.
Yeah, yeah.
That's right.
Just get
Isn't it-
everything I need.
Isn't it weird? You see, like you're watching TV and you see a crowd, and your first reaction is to cringe. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my
What are you
God,
doing?
there's a crowd.
What are you
doing?
doing?
It's like, are we ever going to do that again? It's just like, the first time I go into a crowd, it's going to be like, what the hell? It's going to be weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to see more of it this month as states begin to
Yeah.
start to loosen the restrictions state by
Right.
state.
So here's something that everybody could do with their family, or even by yourself. So as an example, think about what questions would you like to ask yourself when 9/11 happened? If you could just reach back and ask yourself a series of questions, right? So the
What do you
idea
mean?
is it's a little bit like a time capsule. This is a huge deal. Generations are going to talk about this pandemic because it's going to have an impact on our society that we're not even aware of yet. But there will be many different changes to our society because of this. It'll be something that people talk about for a very long time. And what we're doing is we're videotaping us talking to the kids and just talking about it. What do you think about what's going on? We just kind of swap some stories
Oh,
and the
that's
way
a
we
good
feel.
idea.
Yeah, and it's almost like a time capsule of just the way where your life is at right now. Like as an example, Bob's daughter Ashley and her boyfriend they just left today. They were living with us for the last 6 weeks because of the pandemic, because we had the room in our basement, and my wife and them were just coming back from a trip to visit her sister out in Colorado, and the pandemic was like happening right then. So we said, why don't you guys stay for a little while and not go back to pretty much like dorm situations back at college. And they ended up staying 6 weeks here doing everything from our house. And they just left because like leases are ending and new leases are beginning and they have to deal with it. But like, that was amazing. My kids got to spend 6 weeks with Ashley, who is their cousin, but she's like an aunt to them because she's much older than them. So it was really cool. It was just a really awesome time that we would never have had with each other. So anyway, I just think that's a cool thing. You could do it every couple of days, with your kids, or just ask people questions. I think it's entertaining because, 20, 30 years from now, when I look back on my life and I'm looking at all the videos that I took, I'll be able to know how upset I was during this goddamn pandemic.
Well, I like the fact that we've been chronicling it every week, and it's interesting to go back even to like February and listen to the show and what we were saying about it.
Yeah.
You
Quite
know?
different.
Oh yeah, Bob. My favorite was when we were just talking about this the other week on the show, and you're saying, "Isn't it funny just to look back a month or two and the things that we thought were going to be how it was?" Like you were saying,
Yeah.
"Oh, I won't fly to that wedding of 100
Maybe
people.
I'll
I'll just
drive."
drive there."
Yeah.
Now it's amazing to think that I even considered it.
Yeah.
Even leaving the house.
Well, we're
gonna
been
have to-
tracking whether or not they're going to cancel Dragon Con because they canceled Comic Con. They have not yet canceled Dragon Con. It's beginning of September, so it's there's a few months away. But it really is hard to imagine a worse petri dish of infectious disease than an event like Dragon Con. I mean,
I don't like to go when there's not a big event.
We often get sick
we
going.
always get sick.
We get sick
100%.
more often than
You
more,
get the con crud.
Almost always. Yeah. More often than
It's
not.
like 100% infectivity in that
How could it
conference.
not be?
Oh, it's so
There's 100,000 people, and there are so many times at these types of conferences where you are, you're not just shoulder to shoulder. You're like cheek to cheek. You're just like, super tightly packed in these rooms.
And it's a very low hygiene event.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
You like that, Kara?
Yeah, there's a smell to it.
Depending on your costume,
It's called
There's like
confunk.
a moisture. Like if you squeeze by somebody, you're like, ugh, I think I got their sweat on me.
It's moist. The conference is
it's
moist.
just a moist. it's like a
Humid
breeding
Atlanta.
ground for viruses and bacteria.
And then you go outside to escape it all. It's 95 degrees and humid. So
Unless, like, there's 100% like over. I can't imagine that Dragon Con's going to go forward. At that time.
Yeah,
it's
they're
like
not
it would
giving
be
it up, though, man.
single-handedly
No, they're not.
sort of re-spark the second wave pandemic if they.
Oh
tried to
yeah,
hold the
just
conference
there
like
in
that.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
Oh.
So Kara's a maybe.
Yeah, we're just biding our time to figure out what to do with the tickets, and we have an SGU live show that we're selling tickets for. We have airline tickets, we have hotel reservations, we have private room reservations.
It's one of our more significant events for the year.
Yeah.
For both SGU and ourselves personally. So it's a big deal for us.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I agree though with what you were saying, Steve. Like I can't imagine that COVID's going to be whacked back to
To
degree.
such an extent, that we would feel comfortable being at Dragon Con.
Right,
It's hard to
right.
imagine. So the numbers as of right now, 3.3 million cases worldwide, 239,000 deaths worldwide, over 62,000 in the U.S. The U.S.
Infections.
As we talked about, I think, so it's funny because when we're doing this live stream, we've recorded the show, but it hasn't aired yet.
Oh yeah. So
there's all these things we've talked about, but anyway, so 64,000 is the total deaths in the U.S. It's still trending if you sort of average out the peaks and valleys and just look at, like, you draw the best fit line through the data, that kind of thing. It's pretty obvious that it's still trending up in the U.S.
And for some reason, multiple states decided to open today.
Yeah.
Like, and it's
we're
often
probably
those
underestimating the deaths by half or something like that.
Yeah.
Does anybody else just know now that with all these states partially opening or some of these cities partially opening, that there's going to be a spike in a week or two? It's just going to be this big spike and everyone's going to say, oh boy, I guess we shouldn't have opened, right? I mean, isn't
Of
that
course,
seems
but
obvious, but
these
I
are
don't
places
think
where they're not
could happen.
looking at the data to reopen anyway. I mean, these are places where there are people storming government buildings as an armed militia. Like, this is problematic, right? So I think I actually saw a really interesting article in the New York Times. I think it was this morning, that lists every single state, what their policies are as of today, and shows if they're flattening, if their curve has flattened, if they're still, trending up, or if they're starting to trend down. So you can kind of look, I think it's in the New York Times, and see what's specifically happening in your state and whether, the new policies kind of comport with the data.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Bob, I thought the same thing when the states opened. The whole like, oh, well, we're going to see what happens there. Like we're going to have to
50 experiments, in the U.S.
Yeah.
And, did we say this? Go ahead, Bob.
And sure, there's a lot of people that aren't going to be convinced by the spike. Oh, the spike was caused by something else. But I think a lot of people will see these spikes in a week or two and be like, we really need to just wait it out a little bit more here.
I mean, there have been surveys. The surveys are showing that the public is largely on board with the shutdown. 90%, 80%. It's like 90% Democrat, 80% Republican. So even the vast majority of Republicans think, the shutdown's necessary. They're worried about opening up too soon. They're worried about a second wave. Fauci is good as
that's
said.
good. That means the message is
second wave is probably inevitable. I mean, it's still, again, it's one of the, we're in the middle of this. It's going to be funny to look back on 2-3 years from now and look back and, from with the hindsight bias and knowing what happened, then rethinking all of the things that we're saying now. But I do think that our coverage of the pandemic for the last couple of months has been pretty reasonable. Even looking back, even with the hindsight bias, we said, yeah, this is coming. We should be concerned. Don't panic yet, but this is going to be big. And then, I think it's worse than I thought it was going to be. I think the thing that I underestimated, which I think generally we underestimated, is the extent and duration of the lockdown. I don't think that we were thinking, oh God, we might be locked down, like homebound for months. I don't think that we really wrapped our head around that until it happened.
It's so novel in our lifetime that this would be the approach, because we haven't really dealt with a global pandemic that's a quick pandemic. We dealt with the AIDS crisis, but otherwise we've mostly only.
Well, we had things like the bird flu and H1N1. So I was thinking, it's going to be like a bad version. But those were epidemics.
Yeah,
like
those. They really weren't.
Right.
Global.
I know, but this is totally different.
Yeah,
I remember with Ebola being a little scared for a little while, because it was kind of exploding. Because with international travel, it was kind of spreading, and it looked a little scary. And Ebola is some scary stuff. That's some hemorrhagic fever. That's scary. But then we nipped it in the bud, and
we didn't nip it in the bud.
Well, no, the response was really good. We had a decent.
It was
response.
delayed. It was so. Let me correct that a little bit. The first Ebola, like the currently biggest Ebola epidemic that we've had.
Like 8 years ago?
Yeah, 6-7 years ago, something like that.
Right. There's the Sierra Leone, like the big one that was in Liberia.
It was huge, like orders of magnitude bigger than any previous Ebola outbreak that existed. That was because for the first time, like Ebola generally spreads in like villages, it got into a small city. And then orders of magnitude more bigger numbers than any previous Ebola outbreak. The concern was that it would get into a big city, that it would spread from there to a big city, or one that was connected, with airports. And then we would have orders of magnitude again increase in numbers, putting it in the millions, right? But that didn't happen. Now, the reason why it was as bad as it was because the initial response was terrible. But eventually, the WHO, the CDC, the UN, the governments involved were able to get it under control.
It's our history.
And then they talked was we got to make sure that the next time we respond much more quickly. And again, the fire department, you're like building the fire department while the fire's raging. Next time, let's have it ready to go. Yeah. And so then there was a next time. Right now we have the one that we're at the tail end of now. Yep. That was the second biggest Ebola outbreak. It was still massive compared to any that came before, except for the one previous.
Right.
And there the response was a lot quicker, a lot better. And the real problem was political, was mainly because of the location was not politically stable, and then we had a hard time shutting it down there.
Yeah,
and then even still, there was some criticism that the response wasn't as robust as it could have been. But what all of these episodes are showing, the Ebola outbreaks, then this pandemic, is that we need a massive, international pandemic response strategy.
You think?
And it
has to be organized from the top. Like there has to be a coordinated effort that answers to somebody. I think also the thing that we have to remember with Ebola, which kind of goes without saying, but maybe it doesn't, is that it's a totally different disease. Bob, it's super scary, in some ways scarier than COVID-19, but that's part of why it doesn't spread the same way.
Right, it takes you out.
People get brutally sick.
You have a neon sign, I have Ebola, and people will stay away. Here,
but you could. There's still a point where you could spread it.
Yes, but it's not like COVID-19. It's not like it's running around asymptomatic.
We have never had a hemorrhagic fever outbreak like that in the U.S., so we really don't know what it would be like in a place where. But also, there's a lot of cultural reasons that Ebola spreads in certain areas.
A lot of it is from dead bodies.
Dealing with the dead. Dealing with the dead.
And just living in very close quarters with low sanitation. But even beyond that, my biggest kind of concern lately around COVID-19 really has a lot to do with the infrastructure of testing, and not just that we don't have the tests necessarily, or the tests haven't been there, but like, okay, this is an anecdotal situation, but I would love to get you guys' insight on this. So I think I've told you guys on the show that my ex-boyfriend had COVID, was super, super sick for weeks and weeks and weeks, is on the other side of it, but has been trying to work out and get healthy. And every time he pushes himself, he has such horrible chest pain and lung pain that he was starting to get really worried, because now we're talking a month and a half out.
Yeah.
So he finally decided to go see his physician, because when he first got sick, he called for telemedicine and they said, you probably have it. You have all the symptoms. We don't have enough tests. There's no point in testing, right? So this was way back then.
Yeah.
So he goes and he's negative on his antibody test. And now he's really stressed, because he's like, then what the hell is wrong with me?
Yeah.
And I kept trying to reinforce to him, the antibody tests so far are probably not that good. There's a lot of false positives. Most of them aren't FDA approved. They push them through. They're coming from lots of different places. We don't know. So they also tested him for active infection, and they're waiting to see back.
Yeah.
And his chest x-ray was clear, which I was like, I would kind of expect that if you're not actively having, I don't think he has pneumonia.
Yeah.
But it's a really stressful, scary thing, because it's like, then what the hell is wrong with me? And so I was like, I really think it's the test, not you.
Yeah.
Before you jump to any conclusions, I think you should get tested again.
But what we don't know,
lab.
Kara, because it's so new, is we don't know what the long-term consequences of having COVID-19 are.
Yeah.
Is this just damage done? Is it going to take a year for his lungs to really recover?
But the fact that he's like, if I don't have any antibodies against this disease, what the hell have I had this entire time? I'm like, you probably still had COVID.
Yeah, we talked about this.
Yeah, I think
the tests are not 100%.
I think they're actually pretty low, and they're all over the place. Like, we're not talking active infection tests.
Yeah.
The antibody tests are like, there's like multiple companies that are making them with very little oversight right now.
Yeah.
Oh, my dad's trying to FaceTime with me. Sorry. Let me decline this.
Bring him on. There's space. I see a box right over there.
I'm just going to text
I'm
him.
sure, Kara, the chances that it wasn't COVID with him having symptoms exactly like COVID and all that, like he had it.
That's what I think, but
he's just got to go get retested. He's got to go get retested or wait for a second test to come out. Meanwhile, he's got to get
wrong with second test.
Physician absolutely has to tell him how to handle the lack of lung capacity. And if he's getting chest pain, what is that caused by?
I told him, don't go back to your like regular old physician. Look up a USC or UCLA antibody study, or go to a larger, call in advance and try and find a larger kind of hospital-based coordinated testing effort, because I think it's probably going to be more legitimate. I really worry about like these independent physicians who are just getting their hands on whatever tests they can. Again, this speaks to what you were talking about, Steve. It's not coordinated. It's like... it's stressful.
Yep.
Anyway.
Steve, I have a question for you, Steve, and for any of you guys that have the answer. So, we heard at one point that, very cautious about propaganda news and, the information that comes at us that you can't help but have it kind of sink in. But everybody was hearing that Trump dismantled like the pandemic response teams that we had out there and all that. So I did some investigating. I found a video of Barack Obama when he was the president in 2014, talking about this global pandemic effort to fight it back. Right. So he's talking about all this stuff that when you hear it, you're like, yes, we need that. Where is that? What happened to that? Like all these cool programs that they wanted to put in place. And what I would like to know is, what did Obama's administration help foster with the world? Because it was supposed to be I think 70 or 80 other nations were in on it. So what did they do? And then what did actually get dismantled? I would like perfect clarity on that, so we can discuss that and use that. If it was dismantled, obviously we did, but there is some confusion about exactly what took place. I was reading about someone that was in charge of a team that said flat out Trump fired the entire team and dismantled.
But that's like small potatoes. Like, there was a global pandemic response initiative, like that was either bolstered. I don't think it was started by Obama's administration. I think it was bolstered or more coalesced by Obama's administration, that had multiple labs. We talked about this on the show, throughout the globe, that were in coordination with the WHO, where they were developing and testing virus load in different animals and developing antibody tests and things like that. And one of those labs was actually in Wuhan, which is, I think, probably what sparked a lot of the conspiracy thinking. But this was like a what would you call it, Steve? Like, it was a government, not necessarily an agency, but
Yeah. I don't know. But so there we had a response team in China that was dismantled. The best summary actually I saw was a meme from The Life of Brian. There's that one scene where he's like, what have the Romans ever done for us? And someone's like, well, they did build the roads. It's like, yeah, besides the roads, they also, they gave us good like medicine and infrastructure. And they start listing all the things the Romans did for them. Besides this.
Yeah, that's right.
And they
what have you done
basically
for me lately?
overlaid the text of what did Obama ever do for pandemic response? Like, well, he did set up this organization. It's like, okay, well, besides that, well, then he also did set up a thing. Like, and it goes through like 6 or 7 things that the Obama administration did for pandemic preparedness that Trump degraded in some way. Now, the complexity is in how much did Trump degrade it. So, like, for example, there was a pandemic response, committee or whatever. Here
it is, the Global Health Security and Biodefense Unit, which was established in 2015 by Obama's National Security Advisor.
So that was what I read.
Yeah. Those people were reassigned to other departments, and this was justified after the fact as, well, we're restructuring for efficiency or whatever. But again, like the best description I've heard about that was like, well, that's like getting rid of the fire department and then having the firemen be in the police department, and then when there's a fire, you send a police car with a couple of firemen in the back seat. And it's like there's no coordinated response now. It's basically after 9/11, right? We created the Department of Homeland Security to unify all of the intelligence for a unified, coordinated terrorist response team, basically. Mm-hmm. And
because the communication was a problem between the intelligence communities, right?
And so basically
that's
what Obama created for the pandemic, and Trump undid that and went back to the bad way of like people separated in different departments, different hierarchies without coordination. And so why is that important? You could argue, well, all of the people were still there in some capacity and under work, the organizational structure was different. It's like, yes, but that's pretty much exactly what caused the 2-week delay in our response that dramatically increased the size of this pandemic in the United States. If we had, it's all about speed and efficiency. That's the point. It has to be organized for optimal speed and efficiency because those days, those weeks matter. They count. And we lost that time partly because the Trump administration severely degraded our pandemic response capability and organization. Yeah, now, all the little tiny details you can argue about forever, but the bottom line is, and I think everything I've read agrees with this, he watered down our pandemic response, and it caused a critical delay, and we're paying for it now.
And so Steve, didn't Obama, during the transition of administrations, one of the they didn't focus on a lot of different things, but one of the big things they focused on during that transition period was a pandemic response and what they were doing. And I mean, that was a focus because it was important and kind of prescient when you think about it. And so the actions they took after that, it's even more telling because they specifically focused on this and they just kind of like, not important.
If you want to read more about it, the team was called the Global Health and Security Team. And so there is an umbrella unit that still exists called the National Security Council. And then the Global Health and Security Team was under the National Security Council. So the Global Health and Security Team was disbanded and all those people got other positions within the National Security Council.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the National Security Council doesn't just handle pandemics. Like that's the important thing to remember. This is under biodefense too.
But it was more like bioterrorism defense.
Yeah, like there's all these other things that have. It's completely different. Yeah. It's not a global health issue.
All right, so that said, you guys pretty much answered my fuzziness there because I wasn't really sure what took place. Now, look, and again, like we've said this before, I don't care about what political party you belong to. I'm talking about the man Donald Trump and his beliefs on science and the way that he's handled science in his administration. How could he not be raked through the coals for putting this country through that? If those are facts,
through the coals.
Yeah, but he really isn't. Like there should be no chance of a re-election if a guy makes a mistake that big in office. That's
agree,
profound.
But he should have been impeached. Like he was it was really obvious to anybody with a brain.
The only answer is going to be in November. That's the bottom line.
The sad thing is that the impeachment hearing showed us that he's in some ways beyond reproach. So I think at this point, it's like we have to wait and see. The crazy thing to me is, the very kind of like classic Trump strategy of like when he does something wrong, being like, it wasn't me, it was Clinton, it wasn't me, it was Obama, no, that was God. And so like this thing where he goes like, the administration left us without tests.
Yeah, is that really?
We didn't have the test.
Did he really say
if
that?
The test, how do you have it? Oh yeah,
oh
I mean all the time. How do you have a test for a disease that has not been discovered yet?
Yeah,
like, and the fact that people hear that and just like repeat that rhetoric over and over. Obama didn't even leave us with enough tests. Like it just blows my mind that something that obvious, and that's what we're dealing with right now. Like it really is Orwellian, the amount of like truth twisting.
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah, I mean we're in a I think legitimate battle between people who are anti-science and critical thinking and anti-expert. Right? Steve put it very well last week. And that out of anything that's come out of the last 5 or 6 years, that bothers me the most. That I look at people who are have dedicated their lives to understanding one subject. Like I want to be really good at X, and they get really good at that. And I put such a huge price tag on that in my life. Like I defer to the experts. That's what I do. And I don't care who they are. If that expert, if I find out a person X is wrong, or I can't trust their information anymore, I switch. I don't care. I just want to know what the truth is. But I value that so highly in my life that when I see people disregarding things, just blatantly disregarding one piece of information over another because they like the other piece of information better, it's painful.
Did you just see what Scott Bringlow, I think that's what your name is, Scott? Sorry, it's hard for me to see because I'm not wearing my glasses. New rally cry: Trump should be bleached.
Bleached. Whoa.
Good.
Yeah.
That's his recommendation. Scott,
there's some good
news.
Go ahead, Steve.
Good news, everyone. All right, so the first treatment has been shown to some effectiveness for COVID-19. So not hydroxychloroquine, which is tanking because it doesn't work and it's dangerous. There's another study showing, it's associated with increased risk of cardiac conduction defects. But there's antiviral medication remdesivir, which completed a trial. We're still waiting for the peer-reviewed, process to go through, but they announced the results. So it did significantly reduce the duration of illness from like 14 days to 11 days. There was a trend toward decreasing mortality, but it was not statistically significant. So it didn't statistically significantly increase survival, but there was a trend. I think it was like 11% to down to 8% mortality in the treated group. But that wasn't statistically significant.
Okay.
So, it's not a cure. Again, no difference statistically in the percentage of people who died, but it did reduce the duration. So the question is, when do you use this? Do you use it more in the early or in the late phase? There's some suggestion that it's more effective if you use it early on. And even though it's a modest effect, with something like this, typically we get to a cocktail. Like we get 2 or 3 or 4 drugs. Yeah. If they're each whacking it back by 10%, then together you get a significant result.
Yeah.
I can tell you, my ex probably would have done anything to get something that made it 10% less horrible.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
You know what I mean? He was sick for like a month.
Damn.
If you keep people out of the ICU for a little bit, off ventilators for a little bit, obviously.
And that's just the critical people.
Yeah.
I think we often forget, we're like, oh my gosh, look at all the people who are dying, all the people on ventilators. And then we forget all the people who are just miserable, who like aren't sick enough to want to take up hospital treatment, or maybe probably should have gone to the hospital, but didn't want to take that risk because they're like, I can handle this. And who are just brutally sick. Like the handful of people I've talked to who had it and actually had the symptoms are like, that's the sickest I've ever been in my life.
It's brutal. It's brutal. And apparently like you have a week where you feel like you have the cold or the flu, and then the second week it can get hammered. Like there's that delayed effect.
Yeah. Two of my closest
There's also the
friends
late
got it.
phase. Yeah. There's a late phase where for the really sick patients, which might be like the immune system storm phase. So now
that's when they might end up in the hospital.
Yeah, the thinking is you use the antiviral early on, and then when they get really sick, you give them the immunosuppressive drugs like steroids.
Yeah,
because that's when the immune system is actually doing all the damage. But again, we're learning as we go. But this is some of the hypotheses that are being thrown out there. But this was one little baby step forward. Hopefully, we'll keep adding them. Get to the point where we can reduce the morbidity and mortality of this disease. And we're trying to fast track. They're saying they're putting the vaccine development on warp drive, but that's always tricky. The faster you try to go,
less reliable, less.
I think that's what's
more
happening with
problems.
the antibody test. I think it was like the pendulum swung the other way. They waited too long with with the actual active infection test, and so then they were like, "We screwed the pooch on that. Let's go the other direction." Yeah. What about Steve?
CRISPR.
Well, I'm sure people are doing something with CRISPR, but
they are. I mean, there's some tests. I saw some research working on some tests with CRISPR that I think it doesn't need reagents or anything, and it does it in an hour.
A test.
It's a test.
Gotcha.
That's just a test. And I mean, an hour. Imagine, having a kit at home where you can, in an hour, you could see where you are. That would be great. Like, okay.
Well, what about?
But still preliminary.
What about these plasma, this 100-year-old therapy that I'm starting to see more and more people who had it, who have the antibodies, are donating their plasma for these kinds of treatments. I know that this is probably never going to be able to be something that's large scale, but do we know yet if it works? Like if it's actually helping people?
I haven't read anything about it.
We don't know yet.
I've only been reading about
but it's perfectly reasonable. Basically, you're giving people antibodies, not the ability to make antibodies, but it just gives them like, here's 10 days worth of antibodies, just an infusion to help whack it back while your body has time to make its own response.
Yeah, guys, Claudette, my ex-wife, she was drafted as an ICU nurse from her normal position, and they're using plasma from people that have recovered.
Yeah,
and they're using that and giving that to people that really, really need it.
And it's helping.
She says from her perspective, it's helping. So,
but that's anecdotal.
That's anecdotal.
The
fact that they're continuing
throwing it out there
it,
as anecdotal, but they're doing it.
Yeah.
Interesting. And I remember about the CRISPR. What they're doing is that they're taking people's immune cells and they're genetically modifying them using CRISPR, putting them back, and they're detecting them still in their system. Like a weeks later, they're still there, or some of them are still there. And they said it was funny. They had a funny quote. They said that, and we also want to make sure that there's no mutation that can cause a lot of damage. And we weren't seeing a lot of that. I'm like, whoa, wait a second. That's a little scary.
This is where mutants come from, Bob.
Right. But it's great to see CRISPR really trying to help, and potentially, maybe in a year or 6 months, we'll be saying, we'll be praising CRISPR and everything that it's done. I mean, it's got great potential. Imagine taking your immune cells and beefing them up like Wolverine immune cells and putting them back in. I mean, that's got such amazing potential. Maybe not for this pandemic because it's too soon, but in the next generation, can you imagine?
I don't know. Yeah. Bob, Mark Fagan says that UC Santa Barbara has a CRISPR test ready with 500,000 tests, but it needs FDA approval.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool.
So I think that is a bottleneck.
Fairly far along, yeah.
For some people, for some of these developments, but it's a good bottleneck to have. I mean, I wish that we could do that part faster, but the regulatory part is important. We can't skip that.
Yeah, no, you're right. I know, Kara. I know, because there's a fine line between, look, what do they got to lose, and putting something out there
that doesn't work. What's the point?
Yeah, I know. I agree with you. I agree. Like, I think the most rational part of me completely agrees with you, and then the part of me that has this isn't happening. But if I had a person in the hospital, I'd be like, throw a brick at them if you think it might have even a 0.5%
picture
chance.
Picture your mom in there.
And there's a big difference between
for anything you could reach for.
Yeah.
There's a big difference between what you do when somebody could die in a day and what you do when somebody's still at home. And I think there's also a big difference between approval of these tests and approval of these kind of last ditch therapies, because we do have compassionate therapies, compassionate use for therapies that, have some reasonable expectation that they're not going to harm the patient and they might make them better. But in terms of giving somebody a test that doesn't work, That's can be more damaging because it F's up all of our epidemiology.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. So I sent out a Patreon letter or message to all of our patrons, just basically asking how you doing, how are things going, tell me if you have an interesting story, tell it to me. And I'm getting some cool stuff back from our patrons there. I mean, I'm getting some interesting and very different readouts on where they're at and what their life is like and what's different. A lot of people with kids are saying, I heard what you've been saying about the kids and I'm having the same thing, which is nice to know because there's a community of people that like kids are getting a little bonkers, right? Okay. So we all have to deal with that.
Some adults.
Another category that I slip people into are the people that really nothing has changed. Now that's a Vulcan desiccated hand, right, Bob?
Yes.
And then some messages I got back were pretty serious. People talking about they lost their grandfather, they lost their father, losing family members, and how it's changed the family suddenly. Like this pandemic went from like stay at home for a little while and you get a little bit of a break from normal work to we lost a family member out of the blue. And I sent that letter because I really care about our listeners. I care about our skeptical community, and I like to read people's personal notes on what's going on. I'm really fascinated by all the different stories. Think about like all the stories that happen in a war as an example. This is kind of similar. Everybody's got something going on. So anyway, I for our patrons that are out there, first to those of you who sent me a response, thanks. I'm reading them all as they come in. And just, don't be afraid to lean on. I told people, join our Discord. We have a great audience there, great group of people on there. You could, if you're at 3 a.m, you can't sleep. Somebody's awake up on our Discord at 3 a.m, wherever you are, whatever 3 a.m. is to you.
Yeah.
So don't feel like you're alone. If you're home alone, you can go talk to somebody.
If you need Jay's number, here it is.
Yeah, thanks.
Someone will go back and freeze frame that.
Let's shift to a non-COVID story really quickly, and then we'll go to questions. So I just saw today on the news that NASA has announced the companies that they're going to contract out to build the new lunar lander.
Yes.
And which is it's a little tiny slice of the Artemis program, but it's, being a sort of a little bit of a history buff about Apollo program. The building of the lunar lander was a whole saga unto itself.
Yes. Yep.
And also, it really makes it feel like, gee, this is happening. This is like really feels like it's happening. Like this. They're actually putting all the pieces.
If they're going to build it, they're going to send it.
So as a fan, I want to make a comment as a fan. This has nothing to do with science or feasibility. Just please make it look cool. It's got to look cool. That's what SpaceX got that better than any other effort ever. They got it. Their Dragon capsule is so goddamn cool looking. It's so futuristic looking. It just nailed it. And then he goes for retro
engineering decisions as to how it looks.
I agree. I threw that out there. I said that from the very beginning. But man, because I thought the first lunar module that we made, the lunar lander, it was cool because of what it was. But it really wasn't that cool looking. Like we saw one at the museum.
Like a dune buggy.
It's janky as hell.
It's janky. They look like they used tinfoil a lot. They did use tinfoil a lot. You know what I mean?
It was that's because tinfoil. It was built to be as light as possible.
I totally
get it. And
it
didn't have to be robust because the moon's gravity is not that strong.
Also, a lot of NASA ships look like that. They have that, whatever that material is. That's what a lot of the orbiters look like too.
Yeah, it's reflective, etc.
I totally get it. But I also think that... just bear with me.
What do you got,
wasn't a waste of
I'm expecting Bob to pull out the miniature of the prototype of the rover. And
there is something romantic about these things as well, because it does stir people's imaginations and involve the human race and what they're doing. So I wish
I agree, but I think it's only
there you go, Bob. Thank you.
If it works.
I know.
There it is, Jay. There. That's the prototype.
I started by saying the fan in me. I just hope that it ends up looking cool. Maybe they could fold in good design along with the functionality.
Sorry to combine the two news items that we were talking about, but what do you guys think about Elon's recent comments?
Come on. I mean, that's ridiculous, man.
Right? What is he doing? Shut your mouth, Elon.
Shut up, dude. Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. Just because you're smart and you're rich doesn't mean that you're smart about everything.
Hey, well said, Jay.
All right,
Thank
so
you.
real quick, now we need a little robot intermission. So somebody was asking about my Sentinel robot that was out here last week.
You have a sentient robot?
That's Sentinel. So this is from the Matrix.
Oh.
This isn't it. This is like a cheaper, much cheaper one. The one I had was this big thing, and this
Life
is the
size.
Sentinel. So he asked me, what was it? That's a McFarlane Sentinel. There's a that's a really nice one. There's one step up that's a little smaller, but the detail is exquisite. That's the Hot Toys, but it was it was like over $300.
Oh, forget
and
that.
so I didn't get that. I would love it, but the one I had was McFarlane. Somebody also asked if I had any IG 11 robots. Of course I do. So here's one from
There's one of 1,000.
This is from the Mandalorian season. It's worth it to watch that series just for him. There's a lot in there to love, but just for him, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
But I don't just have this one. Of course, I've got the.
Are you kidding?
The Mega IG 11.
Yeah,
which
that one is
really
awesome.
sweet. They're both. What a
You're
great
just holding it
robot.
closer to the camera.
First perspective. Hey, look how my thumb is bigger than the other. Oh,
Hey,
It's
Bob.
hitting my head.
Hey, Bob, what's on your T-shirt? Is that the shuttle?
No.
No, is
No,
that
Star Trek.
Star Trek. I was like, is that the Space Force?
I'm wearing Star Wars today.
Oh, you're
We-
Star Wars?
My
Bob,
apparel
did-
is Star
You
Wars.
guys
We
see
did it.
mine? Can you make out who that is?
It's someone. It's
Yeah, it's Mr. Rogers.
It's Mr. Rogers.
Oh, Bob.
I love him.
So Bob, you brought those with you to do an AQ6 episode, Alpha Quadrant 6 episode with me.
Oh
and
yeah.
Steve. So I just as a quick aside, because you brought up the IG robot. So there were, the very first time that you see the IG robot in
Empire Strikes Back.
Empire Strikes Back
On the
you
deck
see-
of the
you-
Star
you-
Destroyer.
right,
Yep,
but you see
oh, yeah.
it's the lineup. It's the famous lineup of all of
IG-88.
the
Bounty
Yeah,
hunter
it's all the
lineup,
bounty
which
hunters.
was awesome.
but he's standing next to
Do the
Boba
line,
Fett,
Jay.
right?
Do the line.
No disintegrations. He's standing next to Boba Fett, right? So he's, IG is standing there like this, and Boba Fett is over here with his head turned a little bit. And holy shit, somebody caught this in the Mandalorian TV show. They framed the two of them exactly the same as in the Empire Strikes Back. And I was so thrilled by that. I put a post up on the Alpha Quadrant 6 days. I'm like, yes, that is so cool. Whoever the producer of that show is my new freaking god. I love that show. And the new season starts like in a month, by the way.
Wow, I was going to ask that.
Good to know.
Yes. Yep.
Good to know.
Oh wow! All right, one more thing from Bob. You see, I got a new display here of skulls. I want to hear what are people's favorite skulls that I have out here. Here's my absolute favorite. This one is from
Disney World.
Disney World
That's
outside
where
the
you found them?
outside the Pirates of the Caribbean. So this is Disney. It glows in the dark. It's like 35 years old. I just absolutely love it. It's just kind of beautiful and the paint job is wonderful. So this is my favorite. But every one of these are kind of special. Here's a cool alien one. This is a cool little.
I have
alien
two good ones. I'm going to go
skull.
grab them.
Oh, go ahead.
And this
don't have any
one is
skulls here.
really. I got this in Italy, in Rome, near the Trevi Fountain in 1994. I'm not even sure what this is made of, and it cost I think 130,000 lira at the time. I still know 150,000.
Oh, good.
Holy crap!
Whoa, like
150,000 lira, and this one is just gorgeous. I mean, look at this; it's heavy and solid.
It's a big jaw.
Hey, Bob.
I
What
don't
do you
know if
got?
That was, to scale.
Oh,
that's
nice.
awesome.
I like.
This is my favorite dinosaur, Styracosaurus, and this one is to scale. It's 1/10 of scale, Evan. And then I also have this that I got at Weta when I was there last in New Zealand, which is made by one of their artisans that works there. Australopithecus boisei, which is Nutcracker Man, and it was sculpted by Stephen Saunders. And it's a beautiful,
Oh,
that's
Long
nice.
skull.
That's very
Oh
nice.
wow!
cool, right?
Yeah,
and it came in
but-
a really pretty little box.
And
So you can-
here's my dragon skull.
Oh,
Very
that's
nice.
pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Didn't even let Kara.
I was like, whatever.
Cool off
Put away
yet.
your science. It's Bob's time.
I'm sorry. I
now.
wanted
Put
to
away
get
your
this guy in.
science.
I mean, look at this guy.
Yeah, these two things actually existed, by the way.
Bob's thing existed. It's right
Just
there.
saying. I do also have some skulls upstairs, like my neuro skulls and things like that. Oh, and I just got a question about, yes, Bob, you got one of these?
No, he doesn't.
No.
You got one of those?
Well, it's out for cleaning. You know, it's not here right now.
I have one that's 1/10 scale. It's about that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I've got 3 of these that are all from a local news show that I worked on. So they're like the baby Emmys because they're the LA Emmys.
Yes.
So it's the same Television Academy, but they're like smaller. And on the bottom, it has a whole funny thing about how you're not allowed to sell it. Apparently, that's against the law or something.
Really?
2 of them are for the show that I worked on, and then the one in the back there is actually for me for one of the stories that I did. So I won for my reporting, and then
that's awesome.
The show winning our category. Yeah, it was really cool.
Damn right.
You deserve it, Kara.
That's great.
Thank you.
Did it the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, but I got a Hulk robot.
Yeah, I know, right?
Oh, Bob,
I'm
cool.
Kara, I was just right before you went for those trophies. I was going to go get one of my Star Wars blasters, and I'm like, "There's no freaking way that I'm gonna put up one of my blasters to one of those that you have behind you." So I'll just sit the fuck back down.
It's hard to compete. It's hard to compete.
All right. Let me get something though.
Oh wow! Jeez, this segment is called whipping it out.
Jay, look at this.
Whipping it
Jay,
out.
you know this, Jay. This Hulk bot has got this. Look at this little dude inside of him. Like, what is that?
Oh, that is cool.
That is just like such a nice touch.
Here comes
All right,
Steve.
What do you got, Steve?
This is big guns.
Yes.
Cool because we designed this.
Yes.
With David Tremont from Weta.
Yep.
Yeah, cool.
Sweet.
This is a. Well, you could think. What do you think this is? If you had to guess where this is from, what would you say?
You mean which genre?
Yeah,
or which
genre? Where would you place this in this? Where would you place this in the sci-fi universe?
Battlestar Galactica?
I don't know. I might even put it with like District 9 or something.
Yeah, well,
like it's like an alien.
Weta.
Yeah, it's Weta. So
what is alien?
Like it could be alien. It could be future tech, but it's got like it
has hands
like an industrial
people.
vibe.
So it's clearly for people.
True.
It's for humans.
Yes.
It's for humans. Okay.
Absolutely.
Is it space oriented?
Yes.
Yep.
It's in space. Humans in space.
Humans in space.
Star Wars.
That doesn't make sense. You'd have a glove on if you were in space. You couldn't grab that thing if you had a big space.
No, you'd be inside the spaceship.
It's Star Trek.
Internal.
It's Trek.
So it's security. Yeah, Trek security.
That's
it's
where
Star
I
Trek,
stop.
the original series.
TOS.
But this was this has never appeared in the show. It's not canon. We made it up. But the concept is Star Trek, the original series, but made for what?
You mean what? Would it have served in that universe?
Who wielded this?
Well, Kirk once had a rifle.
A crappy one. This is a much better one.
Oh,
who would have had the better phaser rifles?
The Romulans, probably.
Even better.
Section. Section.
What's the number? I'm forgetting the number.
1.
Section 31.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Or 33
or 32. It's 31. I think.
31, 32, whatever.
1, 2, or 3, whatever it takes.
Vulcans?
No. It's basically the Black Ops of Starfleet.
Yep.
Right.
They have Black
Steve,
Ops.
show them the business end. So that's a tri emitter. So we're talking gamma, a gamma ray laser, right? Gravitational waves, and what was the other one? A particle beam?
Yes.
Oh, so I'll just hold up my bag of microwave popcorn. I'm good. Protect me.
You don't want to be hit by all 3 of those at once.
Okay, somebody in the chat said that if Steve gets to talk this long about his gun, I get to show more of my awards. So
Sure.
Wow, okay.
So I've got 2 more that I can show off. This is the Radio and TV News Association Award for Best News Program. And
awesome.
This is, so they call that a golden mic. And then.
Hey, Mike.
I know.
Nothing gets by you, Kara.
This is a Southern California Journalism Award for more of our reporting. So yay. And then probably the thing that I'm most proud of recently, this just happened while I was in Australia with the guys. So how long ago was that now? 3-4 months ago? I've lost all track of time.
Late November, early December.
Okay, cool. So that's really recently. Hang on.
Oh.
I don't know if you guys remember when I got
Namibia.
this.
Yes.
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 This is my Friends of Namibia Award, which was presented strangely but awesomely by the honorary consul general from the Republic of Namibia in Australia. So the Namibian consulate in Australia gave me a Friends of Namibia.
That's
Cool.
awesome, Kara. That's a pretty. I love the look of
To
that.
an American.
It's fun, right?
Yeah.
Cool stuff.
I love Namibia.
Yeah.
Love it. And I cannot wait until I get to go back. And I hate the hardest part for me about lockdown is the fact that I can't travel.
Yeah, I know.
You used to
Just charge up your money batteries during this time. Now back to guns. This gun was also made by David Tremont. This is a Star Wars Outer Rim blaster.
Who keeps guns in their office?
And this thing is so exquisitely detailed. Every little bump and jag on there. I mean, oh my God. So the story behind this one is that he had a month off from work. He had to spend his vacation. He takes a month off, and after a few days, he just said, I screw it. I got to start building again. This is what he does for his day job, by the way. That's how much he loves his work. So he just, through the stuff that he had home, he made his own gun, right? Then he's like, I got too much stuff. I don't have anywhere to put it. So he emails me and he says, Jay, what do you think about this? So I see a picture of this. And it looks like, maybe about 300 years before Star Wars, the first movie, Outer Rim, definitely not an Empire weapon. He's like, you perfectly nailed it. That's exactly. He goes, I'm sending it to you. I'm like, what? So he sent it to me. And
you speak the same Outer Rim
totally.
language.
We were literally like, do. So I get it. I'm so excited.
I have to point out that 4 of these were made, right?
Yeah.
Bob, Jay, and I each have one, and there's a 4th one that is going to be auctioned off. Not auctioned off. It's going to be given away. Going to be given away to a patron of the SGU and or AQ6. As soon as we hit 4,000 patrons, somebody gets that gun.
Yep. That's awesome.
And we've estimated the street value of that gun, of these types of weapons made at this. These are hero prop.
They're hero level props.
Not a real gun though, guys.
No, not even real.
I'm still working on that gamma ray laser. That's
they easily could begin at $10,000 each.
Weta would sell something like that for like $10,000.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It could. Somebody said, Bob, I bet you don't have a talking, dancing skeleton. Oh, yes, I do.
Why would you challenge him? Please, give him.
Really say
somebody did. I have 2 dancing skeletons downstairs.
Someone hasn't been watching the show very long.
This guy rocks it. You're gonna love this guy. I'm sure you've seen him. The accent is just
that guy's got nothing on the pineapple pen guy.
Yeah, he's downstairs.
He's awesome. All right, let's go to some questions.
Question time.
Ian, what do you got?
Hold on, I'm just posting a link to the T3 web page that we
Terminator 3
laser contest. So if you just want to, everybody check that out in the chat. So the question we have do we have any comments on the UFO video release?
Sure we do.
We gotta wait until this weekend.
Yeah, we did a full breakdown this week. Although I'll just add one thing. Since our discussion on this week's show, just like I wrote about it, and then I'm like reading comments and doing follow-up research. So I learned. I found a video analyzing it, and they make a pretty strong case that those black blobs are distant airplanes. Yeah. Just distorted, blurry, distant airplanes.
Yeah, I think Mick West did the video on YouTube that a lot of people are pointing to. I linked to it on my Facebook page as well. And hey, that looked as good an analysis as anything I've seen.
Now, doesn't it blow your mind that the pilots say in the video, what the hell is that?
No,
it's a goddamn
airplane. Well, if we didn't know better, yes, Jay.
It's an airplane.
We know better that.
I know, but the point is that even pilots couldn't even recognize a fellow airplane.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Yeah. That's how hard it is. That's how it's whatever.
But it was a black smudge. At the time, it was a black smudge.
I know. That's it.
Any of our listeners, fighter pilots, they can write us at info@theskepticsguide.org and tell us more about your experiences up there, because we don't know.
Okay, question, please.
Do you want to stay away from COVID stuff? Because there's a bunch of them, of course.
Anything interesting?
Oh, you mean questions?
Yeah. A couple people were asking about if this had a 30% fatality rate. Do you think it would be we would just have to stay under quarantine indefinitely until a vaccine, or would we reopen?
Why'd they pick that number arbitrarily?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I just think it's hard because like a 30% fatality rate with how long of a transmission period. I mean, there's so many factors that go into it. If you catch something in a day and it kills 30% of people, we wouldn't really even have to be under quarantine to the extent that we are, like, because it would have already spread so fast. I think that there's just so many horrible and perfect kind of ingredients to COVID that are making it so difficult, right, Steve?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you can transmit it when you're asymptomatic. You can actually have it and be asymptomatic. It seems to affect people so differently. We're now starting to see that men have a more serious effect than women. Some people end up in the hospital. Some people barely get the staples. Like, it's just such a strange virus that I don't know if the mortality rate were higher, would it really make a difference if it still took this long of a transmission? I think we'd still be in lockdown.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Someone said very quickly, I'm an airline pilot and it's hard to identify other planes at a distance.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. There it is. Somebody quickly left a note on Facebook. They wanted to know how to get on the SGU Discord. So the Discord is for our patrons, and you gain access to it at any level you join up at. So you don't have it doesn't like at any of the higher levels. You get it at the lowest level, which is $2 a month, I believe. Yeah, we do that because it keeps out. What's that, Ian? Is it 5?
Yes.
Ian, okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a minimum for a couple of reasons, and one is because it keeps out all of the insanity of the internet, right? Because people, it keeps out bots, it keeps out trolls, and all that stuff. If you didn't have a dollar amount, it would be an incredible waste of everybody's time. So that's like the dumb moderator that we have. The other reason why is because we need it to survive. We need our patrons and the advertising on our podcast to survive.
Because there's 5 of us.
Yes. Yeah, and I work full time for the company, so
Yeah, Jay wants to have health insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah, God for effing bid, I haven't been to the dentist in like 3 freaking years at this point. Me, right, Bob? Imagine that.
Where'd Evan go? Is he getting show and tell?
Evan's getting a rifle, I think, out of the garage.
He's close.
Another question, please.
Okay, so there's one, let's see, about the vaccine, because it seems like everyone's saying, when we get a vaccine in 18 months, how likely is this? There have been a few articles claiming there have not been very effective vaccines against coronaviruses before.
Yeah, we don't know. So this is the big unknown, I think, of this pandemic. How long exactly is it going to take before like we're mass producing a vaccine? Because until you're mass producing it, it doesn't really do much.
Well, and are we going to get one that's super effective?
And how effective is it going to be?
Yeah,
no idea.
Yeah, so
it's all unknown.
We just don't know. I wish we could say the some viruses are really hard to make vaccines against because the part of the virus, the shell that's exposed to the immune system mutates rapidly, or just binding to it just doesn't do much to the virus. The viruses are robust. I mean, viruses evolve to evade the immune system. That's kind of what they do.
Like flu vaccines are good, but they're still not great every
year.
Like
the flu virus's strategy is just to mutate really fast, right? Just to constantly be switching around its strain. That's the sort of the strategy. Coronavirus is a little bit different. Does it not as many strains, but it still is pretty good at evading the immune system. The HIV strategy is to knock out the immune system, right? That's why it's so bad. But
I wonder if, like Steve, I know that we kind of discovered that at least in New York, this strain that is the predominant strain that is making most people sick actually came from Europe and not directly from Wuhan. I wonder how likely it is that a vaccine that were developed would work on both. Like, are they different?
It's always
enough?
the goal. It's always the goal is to make a vaccine that works against part of the virus that does not change and that is functional. Yeah. But again, that viruses, evolution is smart in that way. It tries to subvert the immune system by hiding the parts of itself that don't change from immune attack, and then behind parts that change a lot, so that so they can make basically evade the immune system. But
I want to do a deep dive have you guys seen the series on Netflix Pandemic that actually came out before the COVID-19?
Yeah, part of it, not all of it, part of it.
So they feature a researcher, and he's like a Silicon Valley researcher who is developing this kind of like universal just viral vaccine. And it's a really interesting idea, and I think I want to do a deeper dive on that. Maybe we can talk about it sometime on the show, because I would be I think ignorant to speak about it right now.
Universal viral vaccine,
it's a very it's like an antibody. I don't want to even talk about it yet, because I'm like just remembering it and don't know the details, but maybe I'll about it on the show, because I wonder how much research right now is going into specific vaccines towards specifically COVID-19, and how much is going to this like new way of developing vaccines right now, because ultimately, do we want to keep chasing every new thing, or do we want to be able to get out in front of them? So, and it's not a universal flu vaccine, by the way. This is for like beyond that. Maybe it is a universal flu vaccine, but I don't think so. So yeah, maybe watch the Pandemic documentary on Netflix. It's pretty good. And it's got a very strong pro-vax bent, which I like. And maybe we can dig into that later. Yeah, maybe it was a universal vaccine for influenza. Sorry, I'm looking at
that. Makes more sense. No, they're definitely working on a universal flu vaccine.
Yeah, but this felt different, because I've covered universal flu vaccine on the show before, and this researcher was doing something very, very new.
Maybe a new way to get there. That's more generic.
Be.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't heard about that.
Okay. Yeah.
What else? What do you got, Ian?
There were a couple questions about whether or not we saw Michael Moore's Planet of the Humans.
I still haven't seen it, but I've heard
Jennifer Willett, did she write a review of it, which I haven't read yet? And I think she said no.
Yeah, people are saying bad things. It was either Andy Revkin, or I think it was Andy Revkin that I saw online, who was writing some pretty damning things about it.
Yeah.
So it seems like climate change journalists and experts are not enjoying the film very much.
But we haven't seen it though, so I can't give a personal review. Might be something worth doing.
Another question?
Yeah, somebody was wondering if there are any markers to determine whether or not a virus was created. I think we answered this before in a lab.
Yeah, so
we did that deep dive.
Yeah, Bob
talked about that
a couple weeks ago. There's a lot more talk about that though nowadays.
There are sequences that are common in engineered viruses. If it were engineered, they would have some features, like they would have chosen the most, infectious segments or whatever. But it doesn't have any of the hallmarks that we would think an engineered virus has. But jumping off of that, there's also the question of whether or not the virus accidentally was released from the Wuhan viral lab.
That's
not engineered, just something they were studying that got released. But the latest information is probably not.
Right,
we don't know for sure.
According
to
the intelligence
community,
we need more investigation. But at the moment, the most likely hypothesis is that it emerged in the wild. But
Steve, another way to say that it wasn't, and that it was very unlikely that it was engineered. Another way to say that is that if it were engineered, then the engineers made horrible, counterintuitive decisions in order to engineer it. And that's how nature works. That's not how evil scientists work, really. So it's probably not engineered. Most likely not engineered, but could have been released. We don't know. But even a lot of intelligence communities are saying no right now.
Quick follow-up. The researcher that's featured in the Netflix series, Dr. Jacob Glanville, I think it was a universal flu vaccine that he was working on, but it's this rapid antibody research that he's doing. And right now, the newest out of his lab is that they think that they've developed or they've been able to sequence or understand the antibodies in such a way that they've developed a treatment that's already going to go into human trials soon. He's wary that we're going to have a vaccine before 2022. He doesn't think it's going to happen as fast as everybody says it's going to happen.
Well,
and so it's really about getting the drugs a little bit quicker.
That's a more conventional way of looking at it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I see a lot of images online of people watching this live cast on their TV instead of their computer or their phone. So how many people are watching it on a TV on a big flat screen?
Don't raise me.
I'm curious.
Come here.
You have to come downstairs.
Come here. We're in the middle of a live stream.
Dad, you have to come downstairs.
Jay, you have to go downstairs.
Welcome.
That's my son.
SGU.
This is that movie. He's not locked up in here with me. I'm locked up in here with him.
Yeah.
The Watchmen.
Nice.
No, I'll be done in a few minutes, babe. Okay.
Dad, you have to come downstairs now.
I will. I'm almost done.
Dad,
I love you.
Ready. You have
I
to
love
come
you
downstairs.
too.
What are we having? What are we having?
Dinner's ready.
What's for dinner?
It's a surprise. Dad.
Okay,
You
I'll
have
be
to
right
come
there.
down.
I gotta say goodbye.
Dylan, pull up your pants again.
We're having a surprise. Ooh.
This sounds like these are direct orders from Courtney. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah,
to me.
Okay, someone just sent us a picture of the television set watching us.
Weird.
On the television set. Very cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, hey, that's
Silac, thank you for sending
I feel
that.
like I should put on makeup next time.
Silac said.
I'm used to always doing this with like my crappy webcam, and I'm really tiny in the corner, and I figure that's just how everybody's watching.
Johnny
like,
B. Dead did the same. Everyone's going to now send us their TV shots. That's cool. It's very cool. What else?
Next question.
We have another question about what's the most creative project that we've seen come out of people being stuck at home?
Oh
I
God,
like the one where
thing.
people recreate like a classic painting,
Classic art. Yeah.
At home. Like they pose themselves in the same pose, but using whatever they have at home as props.
I saw that today.
So they're doing that also. Our Natural History Museum, and maybe this is happening around the world, but the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County is doing a challenge for people to recreate the dioramas in the halls. And there are some brilliant ones with like people's dogs dressed up as walruses or like potatoes arranged, and they're really great. Those are my favorite.
All right, guys, I was going to bring this up before, but this is a good point. We should each come up with a project that we're going to do at home, and then we'll report on it next week.
I've got
so
one.
many
My new project it came in today.
Yay!
fact.
This will be fun.
Are you serious, or is it supposed to be funny?
No, all right. So
serious.
I've been thinking of doing this, but what I want to do is I want to bake. I know everyone's doing it. I want to bake bread. I want to make a nice loaf of sourdough bread. So
I'm going to start building a stone wall, so that'll be my project.
And we're building a raised bed vegetable garden, 3 feet by 12 feet. And the components just arrived today, so we're going to start putting it together right away.
I've been doing so many like arts and crafts projects, so I've got plenty of stuff. I've recently finished a scarf for my mom. I've been making soap, bath bombs, shower soothers, and what's the other one? Candles for all my friends.
Shower soothers.
I'll send you guys some fun packages so I can show all of that stuff off.
And Kara, you've been knitting and
knitting.
And
also, I mentioned this off air when we were
reference.
recording the show, but I've been
Don't do that.
diamond painting.
Yeah,
So if anybody who's watching or listening
my daughter
is
does
into
that too.
diamond painting, it's like really weirdly meditative. So I don't know, it's been fun.
Malcolm is projecting us onto his wall. He's gone beyond the television set. We are projected on his entire wall. Well done, Malcolm.
I'm going to create a robot glove using EVA foam. And
cool.
That's going to be.
What do you mean by robot glove?
It
will look like a robot glove,
but it won't actually be robotic.
It's going to crawl around the table, and you're going to have
look
one
like
of those
I'll put it on, and it'll look like a robot hand, and it's going to. That'll be my first foray into EVA foam. That'll be eventually a full body robot suit.
Your first step into your desire to become one with the machine, right, Bob? Starts with a glove.
See what I'm going through? Do you see my life? Do you see what they do to me in this house? Help me, please.
Yeah, I think you need to institute regular beatings.
Yes, I'm gonna go because I need to beat up my entire family.
Or lock your door.
Jay, report back and tell us what they made you for dinner.
Oh boy,
I'm so excited.
Yeah, we want to know what the surprise is.
Yeah.
Jay, he's hitting you with the nunchucks.
They're foam. It's fine.
Yeah.
Be careful.
Foam in the face is not fun.
All right.
Yeah. Someday
So if you've enjoyed, don't. No. Okay. So if you had fun this week, if you want to see my son stab me through the chest with a sword, come to the stream next week, please. You're gonna love it.
By the way, that was the best meme of the week. Was a picture of Darth Maul sticking a lightsaber through Qui-Gon Jinn, saying the first trials of internal light therapy are not going so well.
Amazing.
But they developed a lightsaber, so that's good.
It's off-label use.
It's like, all right, as Jay was trying to say before he got ambushed by.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you for joining us for the stream. We're going to keep doing these indefinitely.
Thank you.
And
see that?
As Jay said, we do have a Patreon if you want to support the SGU, and for AQ6, we're still putting out AQ6 episodes, and you could buy our book, and come to Nexus on August 1st. You can go to the website and sign up for that. And what else?
Say what's up on social media, because I don't know. I'm on there too much.
On social media. I am coming out with more videos. I recorded one, but the video quality was crap for some reason. Ian has to help me troubleshoot that. And then my new webcam is back ordered till July. I guess.
Oh, is that the one that your dog ate?
Your dog will bring it
No, that
in.
was a different lens.
Jay, Steve, I feel your pain. My Necronomicon Book of the Dead Ex Mortis has been back ordered for a year.
Oh,
so what the hell?
It's horrible, man.
It's hard to go on.
I can't wait. This is the prop from Evil Dead 1. I can't wait to get this thing. It's
Ooh, that would
back
be
ordered for months.
Bob. Very
months.
Cool. Maybe that should be your project, is to make one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I got a movie quality prop coming like any month now, and it's like I'll work on other things. That will arrive when it arrives.
True.
All right, someone wants us to show our dogs next week, maybe.
Oh, I was gonna show Killer. He was in his bed the entire time we were recording, and then now he wandered off. So
we'll do pets next week. Something to look forward to.
We'll do
stupid
pet tricks next week.
Steve,
I don't want to do pets. My dog died.
Oh, jeez, Bob.
Oh, geez, Bob. I mean, all right.
I could show you his ashes, her ashes.
You could. Do you have any Halloween pets?
Oh yeah, I got an evil looking cat. I got a real cat. Claudia's pretty awesome. But I got
the cat.
Oh yeah, the cat.
I got
a living one too.
I got some talking dog.
I have this less important living creature.
All right, stay safe, everyone.
Yes, please.
Stay safe.
Take care.
Please, thank you.
Night. Good morning. Good
Bye. Wash your hands.